Today we're going to make sweet potato cupcakes with a marshmallow fluff frosting. The inside has sweet potato and spices and a little bit of brown sugar, and the topping is just this delightful marshmallow fluff that just melts in your mouth and is like a little bit toasty on the outside. To die for. So, first step is we're going to make the sweet potato puree that's going to form the base. So I'm actually going to do this for multiple recipes, so I'm using way more than you would for cupcakes. So first step is we're going to peel our sweet potatoes. So I am going to do that on a piece of parchment here just to make my cleanup easier. I definitely use a Y peeler for this. It's just going to be so much faster. Get yourself a second bowl for your processed ingredients, just to keep your workspace clean. Next step is just to cut pieces. So you don't really have to worry about, what they look like or what size they are. You just want them to be all roughly the same size. So this is a great size. If you wanted to do smaller than that, you could totally do smaller than that, but I don't really feel like cutting that much, so I'm going to cut all of my pieces, and as I cut them, I will place them in my pot. Okay, so now we have everything in our pot, and we're just going to cover it with water just to cover, and we're going to boil it kind of over high heat. And then I'm just going to let that cook until they're tender, so you can poke them with a knife, or I prefer to poke them with my best friend, the cake tester. And so as soon as they poke easily through and back out with no resistance, then they're done. So our sweet potatoes are done. I can poke them super easily with a cake tester, like no resistance whatsoever. So I'm just going to turn that off. And I'm going to grab this carefully, and I'm going to go over to my sink and dump it through a colander to strain out the water. Okay, so I've got my strained sweet potatoes. I'm going to put them through a ricer. So I've got a bowl here to kind of squeeze them into. You can put them in a food processor, and then you can pass them through a sieve. Whatever you want to do, whatever's easiest for you. I find this super easy. So I also like the ricer because it kind of gets rid of some of the strands that happen. Now if I wanted these to be a lot smoother, then I would not use a ricer and I would put them in a food processor. So to put this puree into cupcakes, I'm going to cool it completely, and then I will make my batter after it's completely cooled. It is time to make the cupcakes. There's a lot of ingredients going on here, but it is just the creaming method, so no stress. We're going to zest about a teaspoon of lemon into our sugar. A teaspoon is usually like the zest of a medium lemon, but this is very large, chunky lemon, so it's really not going to take, it's probably going to be about half of it. So the sugar will help to kind of bring out the essential oils that are in the lemon, and it will give it a more intense flavor to the batter, because sometimes it does have a tendency to get lost. Okay, so we are just going to do the creaming method here. You can do this by hand with a hand mixer if you'd like. I've got my butter, which is room temperature, so it's softened but not melty. And then I'm going to add both of my sugars. I've got brown sugar, dark brown sugar, and my granulated sugar with my lemon zest. I'm going to fit it with a paddle attachment, and go ahead and start it on a little lower and gradually increase the speed from there. So while my sugar creams, I'm going to whisk together my dry ingredients. I've got AP flour. You can use pastry flour, whatever you have. Baking powder, baking soda, cinnamon, ginger, a little bit of nutmeg, and a bit of kosher salt. And I'm going to whisk those together. Voila. So my sugar, I know it's done when it'll kind of stick to the sides and form like a paste, and then it'll kind of pull back in and start to look a little lighter and fluffier. It's often hard to tell with brown sugar when it's done because of the extra moisture, but that usually helps me. Okay, so you can see that it's kind of pulled in and it's looking a little bit lighter and fluffier. So I'm going to start adding my eggs one at a time. Just beat it in really well. Last one. go ahead and put our vanilla in with that egg. Okay, so I've got a nice smooth batter, and I'm going to go ahead and add my cooled sweet potato puree. Now you'll remember we made our own, but you can also use canned if you'd like. And I'm going to start alternating adding my dry ingredients and my milk. So I'm just going to add my dry. You don't want to overmix it, so you want to make sure that you aren't waiting for the flour to completely combine before you add the next batch. Okay, and that's it. So we're just going to quickly line our tins. I've got just regular muffin tin liners. Grab a large scoop to make it easier to dish and to divide the batter. Okay, so I've preheated my oven to 358 degrees convection, and I'm going to pop these in there, and they'll probably bake around like 15 to 17 minutes. And I'm going to check them in 7, rotate them. I'm going to get them in there, and we'll let them bake. So our cupcakes are out, and if you touch them, they kind of spring back, but also you can use a cake tester to kind of pop it in there and make sure it comes out clean with just like some clinging crumbs. But mostly you'll just see that they look set, and that's great. And then we're just going to take these and dump them out. Wah! Flip them back over delicately, and then we're just going to let them cool completely before we frost them. So our cupcakes are cool, and we're ready to frost them. I'm going to frost them with this marshmallow fluff frosting that I'll link up there, but you could also do it with any sort of American buttercream or cream cheese buttercream. The world is your oyster. So I am going to first, I've got 2 bags. I've got a bag to put my fluff in, and then a bag to put my tip in. I'm going to cut a hole that's big enough. I like to do 2 bags, and that way if I want to change my tip or do multiple tips, I don't need to take everything out of the first bag. So I've got my fluff. It is easier to pipe this fluff frosting when it's warm, so mine is cooled just slightly, but that's okay. Cut the tip, make sure it's big enough that it doesn't overlap any of the tip that you already chose. So I've got an Ateco 869. I'm going to put my bag in my coupler. Alright. So I want kind of like a ripple effect. So all I'm going to do is kind of like, as I'm squeezing, I'm going to move my little tip up and down. So I'm squeezing and I'm like kind of, creating ripples like in a pool. You could do it with a round tip, you could do just a regular kind of blob or a gradiated blob. You could do any sort of star tip like I did in my caramel apple cupcakes. The best part about fluff frosting is that you get to toast it, yes? Am I right? You can do this under a broiler if you have a gas broiler. Just be very careful. You can definitely do it with a hand lighter also. Just be really careful of your fingers, but it can be done. And I'm just gonna work gently, like carefully, and I don't want to over toast. I want to kind of highlight the lines that I've created without, I don't know, over toasting. I've got a low flame. I'm kind of working my way around it. Uh-oh. I'm lighting as much on fire as I can. Something lights on fire, just blow it out. All right, and there we have it. Our cupcakes are done. It's time to try. So excited. All right, let's get into it. All right, so we're just gonna cut that in half. Yes. Oh yes, that's magical right there. Wow. Wow. You have that moist sweet potato cake with all the spices, and then that soft pillowy frosting that's like a little toasted on the outside. This is a cupcake, my friends. Wow.